All right, we are back here. The baseball season underway. Big hopes for the Mets and Yankees once again. Join me today to help me preview the season. Contributes to SNY, a lot of great baseball content. Anthony McCarron, great friend of the podcast, back with us. Anthony, how are you?
I'm good, Mike. How you doing?
Pretty good, you know. It's this one. I felt like the offseason we talked about it just before we went on the air was so long, and now all of a sudden it's just got here. It's nice timing to have baseball back.
Oh, thank goodness. Finally. Spring training is so long. The WBC broke it up a little bit, but yeah, raring to go over here.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, like the WBC was a big topic this spring because obviously there's a lot of like big performances from like key Yankees and Mets in this tournament. We had the U.S. get to the final and lose to Venezuela. We've had debate about like I know a couple of people have suggested ways to improve the tournament. Like, what was your big takeaways from the WBC this year?
I just, the baseball was really good, and that's what I was really focused on. I know there's a lot of debate about when would be the best time to play this tournament. Does the U.S. really care about it? All that kind of stuff. I didn't get bogged down in it, to be honest. I was just concentrating on some really great games and storylines. Team Italy, I thought, was amazing and really fun, and they played great. They could really rake. So I thought that was really a great thing to see, and the passion that we got in the games. Venezuela, a very proud baseball place. They won and they deserved it. And look, Team USA is going to win these in the future. I think they've already got one. And only Japan has won more than one. They've got three. There's so many good players who are in it, and I feel like that the baseball is so great, and it's such a jolt off of kind of sleepy spring training, that it's really welcome. I don't know what the answer is, if there's improvements to be made in terms of timing, but I'm all in on the WBC, and I'm ready to go for the next time too.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting spot with the WBC because obviously, like, we got more representation from the U.S. pitching side, which usually been the issue for this. Like, have you seen the idea that Jason Stark floated that he thinks would improve retirement?
I did not read. I know he did something, but I don't know what it is. If you give
Yeah,
me a thumbnail.
yeah, I'll give you the quick version. Basically, his idea was that we basically run pool play in spring training, and then we like extend the All Star break out a couple of days and just play the knockout rounds over after the All Star game, make it All Star week, and basically tie it to basically okay, if you want to be in the July event, you have to show up and be eligible for pool play in the spring. I think that to me, I think would make it a little better because you have to get rid of some of my issues about the onboarding of the pitching staff, like some of these guys like being worried about injuries in the previous season. I think that would be more. I think to me, I think the best you probably can get with the way the tournament's set up.
It's interesting. There's no doubt about that. I do like the idea that you have to be on the team early on to be on the team, when they celebrate on the mound if they win. I felt like the pitchers going back and forth this year. I don't know. It just seems odd to me that that was happening. And, I know you have to make allowances for injuries, but if guys are concerned about their workloads being affected, then I don't know what the explanation is for that, and how you fix that. It's not a great look, and I think people seized on that. In terms of playing during the season, yeah, I get it that everybody's up to speed and playing at their sort of very best. But the pitfall there is like, your team is in first place at the All-Star break, and your best player goes to the WBC knockout rounds and gets hurt. And I know we're all worried about injuries in the spring training WBC. How would that feel when you've already banked, a first half of first place, and then your guy gets hurt playing in this thing? I'm not sure how that's going to work. I'm not sure what the effect on the schedule would be. In terms of how many games they play, and part of the I don't know, allure, or part of the fascination with Major League Baseball's season is the 162. And do you trim that during WBC years? I don't know. I mean, that's a tough one to take too. It's just, I think so many people are trying to find the perfect time, and there is no perfect time. And that's the sort of thing floating over this tournament. Meanwhile, they're playing great games with a lot of passion, and if you like baseball, you should like it.
Yeah, that's true. I think we're gonna get a test run of this. It does sound like that they want. I think both the owners and the players want the players to be in the Olympics in LA in 2 years. So I wonder if like that'll be their test case. If they get through that on major issues, maybe they look at the Stark idea in the future for the WBC.
Yeah, I mean, the same concerns. I have the same concerns there, that I would with a midseason WBC. So, I don't know how many questions you're answering there. If, all the major leaguers come through uninjured, then that doesn't mean that it happens the next time either. And those are thorny situations uh, going forward.
Yeah, I think it's more for them. I think more about how they fit the schedule. I think they're worried about the Olympics. Now the NHL just did, and the NHL gets rave reviews for going to the Olympics. So I wonder maybe baseball sees, okay, maybe this is something we can use to grow the game, and like we'll take the one risk that somebody gets hurt, and they still have a trade deadline to fix it.
So many fewer people care about the sanctity of the 82 game
Yep.
NHL regular season than they do about the 162 in MLB.
Yeah, that's
That's the difference.
yeah, that's certainly true. Let's go to the local teams here. So obviously two very different offseasons. The Mets basically blew everything up. The Yankees kind of kept it mostly the same for and the minor tweaks here or there. Like, what's your takeaway? I guess we'll start with the Yankees here. Like the whole idea that they had of okay, we're like we love our team. We tied for the best record in the American League last year with 94 games. We win one more game. We have home field with Toronto in that series. We're getting Garrett Cole back. Their idea basically seems like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And we like what we have. I think with a full year of Ryan McMahon, with Garrett Cole coming back, we'll be in better shape as a team here. Like, how do you subscribe to their idea about we should just run it back because we think we have a good enough team?
I mean, I'm not. I know there are a lot of Yankee fans wound up about this, and I don't agree with those Yankee fans. They were a good team last year. They are a good team now, and they have Garrett Cole coming back, fairly early in the season. The only thing that matters with him anyway is having him straight by October to use him as a playoff weapon. But I feel like the hue and cry there over this is that like somebody didn't get their shiny new toy for Christmas and they're mad. And is that right? I don't know. The Yankees weren't a bad team last year. I feel like I feel like there's this idea out there that if you do, like, it's really hard to win in baseball. No one accepts that anymore. It's all this birthright Yankee championship. We must win. It's been an age since we've won a championship. I mean, it's ridiculous. And it's very, very hard, especially now with all the playoff series. And it's a tournament. And they are built to win in the regular season, yes. Would I have liked to have seen them do one thing, acquire some sort of a major contact hitter, along the lines of a Stephen Kwan? Yeah, that would have enhanced this team. But I get why they're running it back, and I get that that's a pejorative term to a lot of Yankee fans. They were really good last year because you got beat in in 4 games by the Blue Jays, who eventually were like 2 inches away from winning it all. That doesn't mean that your season was an abject failure. There's plenty to like, and there's plenty of reason to think that with their pitching, their rotation especially, when it's all healthy, that they can be really good and that they can be the team that wins that tight series.
Yeah, I think they have their work cut out for them because that division is just so loaded. Because obviously, you mentioned Toronto just went to the World Series. They lost Bichette, but they got some few pieces in. Boston loses Bregman. They do add some. They have Ranger Suarez, and they have all those young kids coming up.
Oh, Roman Anthony. Ooh, talk about a takeaway from the WBC. He's scary.
Yeah, he's scary. The Orioles obviously add Pete Alonso and Taylor Ward and revamp their pitching staff. Tampa looks like the last place team. You can still see them winning 81 games. Everything breaks right for them here. Like that AL East is insanely hard.
Yeah, very tough division. It always is. It's great theater. But look, I mean, the Yankees, I think if they don't win the division, they're going to finish second. They're going to get a wild card spot at the very least, and then take their chances, in October. And that's a decent place to be. Look, I mean, their season, Aaron Judge has been healthy. They've been good. If Aaron Judge is healthy again this year, they're going to be good. And I think that even the sort of gauntlet that that the division is, they can still get through and do a lot of damage there. I mean, Judge, let's just give him his flowers. I mean, he's the single greatest offensive force in the game today of our age, and it's a marvel to watch him play full season. He's going to hit 50 again if he's healthy. He's on base at a 50-ish clip again, like he did last year. I mean, the difference, I was looking at this the other day. I think his on base percentage was 457, and the next highest guy was George Springer at 399. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
It's like Barry Bonds-esque almost.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Also, let's look at some current team building things for the Yankees here. Obviously, they talk about the great pitching they have, but a lot of it is hurt coming into the year. Cole's not going to be back for a couple of months. Rodon will be back a little bit before him. We know, obviously, Clark Schmidt's out for a while here. Yankees seem to decide here. Obviously, you can do this in April when you have all these off days here. They're starting the year with a four-man rotation, which they said they're still sorting out what they're going to do with Luis Heel. But like, what do you think about the choice to go four-man to start the season?
It's fine. I think you hit on it. The off days are the thing. Ryan Weathers is a very intriguing pitcher. He's had trouble staying healthy, obviously, consistency, that kind of thing. But man, his stuff is electric and really, you can dream on it pretty big. So I'm eager to see what he's got. And look, I mean, Max Fried is great, and I like Will Warren. I thought he was. He really showed out last year, I thought, and there's a lot more for him to do, a lot more heights for him to get to. So I think they're fine with the off days, and, we'll see about Luis Heel. I just wonder about, the idea of not just putting Luis Heel in the rotation immediately or keeping him on the major league team immediately. Just like, what are you doing to the value of your asset there? Like, if they don't believe in him, and they have questions on him, then they should have traded him when his value was kind of highest. He's got good stuff. He's got electric stuff, and I know there's control issues, everything. But if you don't like him, he's got a profile around the league. Then trade him.
Yeah. Certainly a fair question about how the Yankees sort of like value their assets here. Obviously, this I think also leads to the Jason Dominguez situation where he does have a great year last year. It's a great spring, but here's the way the Yankees constructed their roster, where they give Trent Grisham this qualifying offer he accepts. They bring Cody Bellinger back. Giancarlo Stanton's healthy. They just have no spot for him on the team. And like, I can't think it's a good situation for him to be a young player, basically go back to AAA where he's played well, and basically have no runway to get an opportunity in the big leagues. And like, if you're trying to build the teams that he's stable for the long run, I don't think this is ideal roster construction for the Yankees here.
Yeah, I mean, they're in a tough spot there. And look, I mean, I think that Dominguez had versus the hype that he came up with last year wasn't great. But as a rookie season for a guy his age, young, early 20s, I don't think it was so bad. And I feel like there is a little bit, I don't know, mismanagement might not be the right word, but there is a little bit of, if this guy was half as good as everybody, including the Yankees, led you to believe at one point, then he would, he'd be a good MLB player right this second. And you're right, there's no spot for him. There's no spot for Spencer Jones, their top prospect, who seems to hit a home run seemed to hit a home run almost every day in camp. So, it's nice to have these problems, but it's also, you don't want these guys to wither on the vine, so to speak. And, that's something that the Yankees have to deal with. Now, look, stuff like this sorts itself out all the time. Is everybody going to stay healthy this year? No, it never happens, or rarely happens. So, we'll see Jason Dominguez again, and probably pretty quickly. But you're right. There's no sort of permanent spot for him to work out everything and sort of bloom in the majors.
Yeah, before we go to the Mets, I do want to ask you about your opinion on the way Yankees sort of treat the position players here. Because obviously, they've got a long time. I think Aaron Judge would have been the only real star they developed here. Like, and I wonder, I've talked to some people off the air, like, I wonder if they do a bad job setting up the expectations for for the young players, because we always hear like all these great things about their prospects. We heard Jason Dominguez gets a nickname, the Martian at 16, is being compared to Mickey Mantle. We hear the Yankees basically saying for years, we're not going to sign a shortstop because Anthony Volpe's the next Derek Jeter. We had them saying Spencer Jones, we're not trading for anybody with Paul Skeens. they set the expectation so high, and then when these guys come up and they're good, but not like next level superstars, like everybody's disappointed and the pressure mounts on them. Like I feel like they're doing a bad job, like setting like reasonable expectations for these kids to come up and like have a chance to be big leaguers.
Well, they've always been really good at hyping their own prospects, whether they're worth it or not. And we've seen that, going back years and years and years, not just the current crop or recent current crop either. But I mean, I'm going back to, you know, I'm blanking on the guy who the pitcher they traded for Aaron Boone back in 2003 that was supposed to be untouchable. And they've had a succession of guys like that they've then traded. Uh, they never became anything, and the Yankees got something, or at least tried to get something for them. So they've always been good at that, at getting the sort of outside world to believe big time in their guys, and that's a good job on them because prospects exist to either help your major league team by playing on it or by getting other guys here to play on it. And I feel like with Dominguez and the recent guys, certainly the sort of overheated attention placed on prospects now. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing because it's very interesting to read about the next generation and get excited about them and all that sort of stuff. But now we have come to the point where once a guy hits on a prospect list, we think like guaranteed superstar in the major leagues. If he doesn't get there, that means that the club failed him. I mean, there is a grain of truth there, but it's not 100% that either. Prospects are prospects. Look back at the prospect lists from past years and, you'll see the great guys who are stars of the game today on there. And then you'll also see guys who were untouchable and they, never became anything. And, it sort of is what it is. In terms of the Yankees specifically, like, I don't love the fact that Oswald Peraza became kind of a guy who 3 years ago was starting playoff games for them and was, purported to be able to play defense in the major leagues. All of a sudden is like this useless guy who they trade in a throwaway deal last year. And the whole thing with Dominguez as well. They seem to have struggled with unleashing some of these guys and getting them to the right spot. I don't know. Could they have solved something by moving pieces around? Move Volpe to second, have Jazz play third, and make Peraza the shortstop. And I'm going back a little bit there, but there are all kinds of things that could have happened there. And some of these guys have been hyped and haven't become something. And then, then you have the best player, the best hitter in baseball in Aaron Judge.
Yeah. Two things I'll
Player
add.
development is not like this exact science. And I think when you see people on names on a prospect list, you think, oh yeah, this is guaranteed now. This is a sure thing. Number one will be great. Number two will be great also. Number three will be pretty good. Number four's got a chance to be an all-star too. And it's inexact.
Yeah, it certainly is inexact here. I did look up the guy they traded for Aaron Boone was Brandon Clausen. That's who you're trying to.
I totally blanked on him, and I remember he was a sparkling prospect at the time as a pitcher, and he had come up and he had made a good start. I think maybe even against the Red Sox, and so he was like their, oh, this guy could be something. And then they traded him, and he didn't have a big major league career. No offense to him, but the Yankees are expert at kind of having everybody think like, oh yeah, pretty good, and then when they're looking to improve the team, which to their credit, they always are looking to improve mid-season with trades, and they're willing to trade those young guys, they can do it.
Yeah, that's certainly a fair point. About the minor leagues and strikeouts, I think in 2002 before they traded him. And to your point about the prospect list, I looked up I had done this before, but 2017 Yankee top prospect list at MLB.com. It's the year before. Like right before Aaron Judge breaks out, he was fourth on their prospect list on Gleyber Torres, Clint Frazier, and Blake Rutherford.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, in Gleyber, like if you look at Gleyber at one time Gleyber was like untouchable.
Yeah.
And no one would have like the idea that the Yankees could, part with Gleyber Torres in a trade was just unfathomable. And he's had a very good career. He's been a couple time All-Star, if memory serves, and like that. But that's what you get, and I feel like it's akin to the draft too. Everybody thinks that the number one pick is going to go straight to the Hall of Fame and all that sort of stuff, and it's so hard that if you get like a representative major league career out of somebody who's at the top of the of your prospect list, then hey, that's pretty good. I mean, he doesn't have to be Mike Trout. He's just got to be a good major leaguer, and then you've scored big time.
Yeah, for sure. We'll go over the Mets here. Obviously, like they did the opposite of the Yankees, where they look at their core and said, "This is not good enough. We're going to blow everything up." They let Pete Alonso walk. They trade Nimmo from for Semien. They let Diaz walk. I think they wanted to keep him, but it just didn't work out for whatever reason. They trade away Jeff McNeil. They bring in a whole bunch of new guys: Bo Bichette, the Freddie Peralta trade, Semien, who I mentioned, Luis Robert, Polanco. Like this is a very new group here. Like did you agree with the decision to reshape that group that really, like, as much as they were loved by the fans, they really did not win a ton as a group?
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, I did, and this goes back to your point earlier in our talk here that like the two off seasons are completely different because the Yankees were like, we took our shot last year, we didn't win, but we think this is good enough, and the Mets looked at their team and said, we're not going anywhere with this group, and there are reasons for that, and we're going to change it, and run prevention is clearly one of the main themes of their offseason and their season in general. Though, I don't mind stuff like the Nimmo trade. I don't mind moving on from Jeff McNeil. I was disappointed that Pete Alonso is not going to be back, and I understand the reasons why. I just love the homegrown slugger who already had the team home run record. I realize there's a little sentimentality here, but I'll live with it. The idea of him maybe getting to 500 home runs as a Met was kind of cool to me. And, right-handed power in the game is a nice commodity to have. And, Pete played every day, and was really good at slugging. And, that's not easy to replace. Obviously, he's not a good defensive first baseman, and that was clearly a big deal for them. So I understand why they moved on from him, and I get it. Edwin Diaz, there's no excuse for them letting him go unless he just told them, I'm not re-signing with you guys. I want to go to the Dodgers regardless of whatever else. And I get it, but like they should have, like if it was a difference between the money and the offers, then they should have just kept going until he said yes. But that's water under the bridge, as they say. I think they needed to be better defensively. They got better defensively with guys like Semien and Robert. I think Bo Bichette's going to be fine at third, and I really think that he's going to have a huge impact offensively on them because they could have used the contact profile that he brings, his clutch gene. Whatever you think about clutch gene, I say this all the time about Bo Bichette. Like if some people in baseball don't believe that it exists, that it's random and, that good players are going to be good at some point in the clutch. But I mean, this guy rakes every year with runners in scoring position. That can only help the Mets. But yeah, they changed things drastically. We'll see if first base works. We'll see if Luis Robert can stay healthy or offer any sort of consistency. Great skill set. Sure gets hurt a lot. So they've got a lot of, we haven't even gotten to the pitching yet. They've got a lot of things swirling around with them.
Yeah, like what do you think about the value of changing the clubhouse itself? Because obviously, like this group, like if we talk about this, but like loved by fans, a lot of homegrown guys, like we're for a lot of the years there, it felt like when the pressure got big, they were not equipped to handle it. And we saw this, I think, especially in 21 when they were fading down the stretch, and we had the infamous like the Pete Alonso talk about, guys, it's fine, smile, so on and so forth. We had the thumbs down with the fans. We have like we had this a lot of times felt like that group when they got punched in the gut could never get back up. Like they had no plan. They got punched in the face essentially. Like, and now I think getting rid of a lot of those guys individually, they may be good clubhouse guys. Maybe the mix just didn't work.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not in there, and only they truly know the answer to that. There sure has been some smoke coming out of there, as you allude to. So changing up that sort of thing, maybe that is going to have an impact. Marcus Semien is supposed to be a good kind of guy, steadying force in those kind of situations. So we'll see how that manifests itself. I mean, look, there's a real element of chemistry. Everybody went on and on about them not re-signing Jose Iglesias and all that sort of stuff before last season. A lot about chemistry has to do with winning and like it's not surprising that a team that was had the best record in baseball for 2 months last season and then completely, fell apart and was dying to get in the playoffs at the end of the season, beaten out by a not so great Reds team at the end. Um, it's not a surprise that there's chemistry stuff about them out there in the ether. So, if they had won a few more games, we probably wouldn't be discussing it as much. So we'll see what kind of impact the new group can have on, they better play well. That's the main thing.
Yeah, for sure. Took a couple of things here. Obviously, the rotation's a hot topic. They bring in Freddie Peralta. They don't move anybody out. They have six guys coming in. I know beginning of spring training, David Stern saying, okay, this got this whole spring training. This will sort itself out. And I think for the first time, like 6 years, they got through spring training without a starting pitching injury. The end result here is Sean Manaea goes to the bullpen.
We're not on opening day yet.
Yeah,
I mean, I know, but that's how fragile pitching is. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. I mean, it's true because the Mets, I know, like on opening day a couple times, have had to do like pull fastballs, pull audibles on us because something happened that they didn't expect here. But like, what do you think about how this pitching situation is shaking out for them? And I know Manaea was not thrilled about going to the bullpen, but I think based on results, you can call it like a piggyback situation. Maybe they have a long stretch of games he fills in everywhere. I think they land on the right five based on how camp played out.
Yeah, and I'm not real concerned about what the rotation is right now. I mean, the rotation for the most part, unless teams get exceptionally lucky, is a living, evolving, growing, receding thing all year with guys, making appearances. So Manaea not starting, one of the first 6 games of the season is not a big deal in my mind. Look, to me, the key was the Freddie Peralta trade. They really needed a sure thing in there because there are so many bounce back hopefuls in that rotation. Peralta is going to be Peralta, which is one of the best pitchers in baseball. I think Clay Holmes is going to be steady again, like last year. He doesn't get enough credit for the spectacular year he had. I think he was ninth in the NL and ERA in his first year back to starting. After all those years as a Yankee reliever. I mean, that's pretty impressive stuff. And then we go down the line there. Nolan McClain, has just about as much talent as maybe anybody throwing a baseball these days. It's so exciting to think about what he may be able to do. And it's also, do we really know what his workload is going to end up being this year? The Mets last year, the Mets had 3 pitchers who had more than 77 innings pitched in the season, and one of those guys was Senga, who missed most of the year. But so like there's plenty of innings to go around here because we don't have, the baseball doesn't exist in a world where there's 250 inning Lions in your rotation anymore. You're hoping to get, I think 5 or 6 teams had 2 guys with at least 180 innings pitched last year. You're hoping that you're one of those teams, and then you got guys who can, fill in after that. And look, Senga could be a real impact guy for them. When he's been healthy for the Mets, he's been good. Not just like acceptable back end of the rotation guy, but like, yikes, we're facing Senga today. And if he's back to that, then this could be a really good rotation. The thing with Senga is when they were desperate last year, they deemed him unpitchable and sent him to the minors, which is like, yeesh. So there's a lot swirling around him too. And David Peterson, I think, I think the world of his talent. He sort of ran out of gas last year, and I think that experience might be something that he can springboard off of this year. If things go right, which is basically the catchphrase for every Major League Baseball team at this time of year, the Mets can have a really good rotation.
Yeah, and obviously the lineup, I think a couple of things I think are interesting here. I think the most interesting ones, obviously, Brett Beatty makes the team. I mean, not Brett Beatty. Carson Bench takes the team's out of camp as the opening day right fielder. I would say he was in a bout Mike Talkman. The injury kind of sealed the deal, but Benj, I think, was winning that one going into it,
Yeah.
that last week of camp here. Like, and I think like they made the right call bringing him up now because I think I saw on the Athletic, I think one of the beat writers there made the great point that like Will Carson Benj being up on opening day is like the sixth most significant change for the Mets, where you have
Yeah,
all these new
right.
guys coming in here. Like it's Freddie Peralta's starting, Bo Bichette's at third. You got all these new guys in the lineup here. Whereas if you bring him up and say like May 10th, like all the attention on Carson Bench, like and then like oh like what's he gonna do? Is he gonna save RC? I think this is a good way to get him into the mix.
Yeah, absolutely. At first, when they were first sort of pushing this before camp started during the offseason, I was like, wow, what's the rush? Like, he's only got something, like 55 or 56 games above Class A in his minor league career. And so I was wondering if they were, like, would this hinder his development? Could he possibly be ready without, a bigger number of minor league at bats? So I was kind of against the idea. And then he just forced his way right into it, which is a credit to Carson Benj. He played well in camp. They told him that they wanted him to play well in camp, and he did that. His at bats, from what I've been told, were very mature. The ones I've seen were, he's not like, oh my God, I better hit a home run on this pitch because I got to make the team. Nothing like that. Like just business. And he can play the position defensively. And it's a great point that he's like the sixth biggest storyline for opening day. I mean, he's going to hit eighth or ninth. The Mets offense and the Mets season does not hinge on Carson Benj being the rookie of the year. If he can be a good decent major league player, and they obviously have higher hopes for him than that, and he seems to have the potential. Scouts love him. Then he could be possibly even more, and maybe by June he's batting fifth in the lineup, or something like that, and is one of the biggest contributors on this team. It's going to be fascinating to watch what happens with him.
Yeah. I'd rather two questions here. Like, what do you think is the X factor for each of these teams, the Mets and the Yankees? That will make the difference between them having like the year they want or them not really living up to the hopes that you have for them.
Yeah, I mean, beyond Aaron Judge's health for the Yankees, I think it's the rotation. They've got some really good names in there, and if they can, ride that rotation into the playoffs, and all those guys are healthy in October, then I think that they could. The Dodgers had all those injury problems last year during the season with their pitching, and then their rotation basically strangled the rest of baseball, and they won the World Series. And I mean, can the Yankees do something like that? Yeah, I mean, with some of those names in there, sure. And then the Mets. To me, the Mets are a pitching question again, just because of the way pitching destroyed their season last year. I mean, they actually. There was a lot of hand-wringing about their lineup too. I think they were ninth in average runs per game last year, which is pretty good. But pitching really crushed their season. They couldn't get any length out of the starters. I think they were 27th in starter innings, which is terrible. And they had the third most relief innings. And once you start leaning on the relievers like that, then things start to go awry. And what's already a fickle part of the game, bullpen pitching. So I think both of those things, if both teams cash in on their rotations, that means we could have a quite a New York October.
Yeah, that's my last question here. Is like obviously last year Yankees win the wild card, win a wild card series, don't go further than that. Mets don't even get there. They get caught in the slow speed chase with the Reds. Like, do you think this is a year where both these teams are in October? And if so, can you think both can win their divisions?
Yes, I do think both can win their divisions. I think the Mets are going to win the East. Maybe that's my usual, sunshiny spring outlook, as I am positive in this time of year. But I think that they're good enough, and I think that the rest of that division is sketchy enough that they can win it. I think the Phillies are the real competition, but I think that the Mets might have a little bit more, and part of it because I think they have depth and answers if things go wrong with some other guys, with some of their guys. So I'm kind of positive on them, and the Yankees I do believe can win the division as well. It's going to be very tough because, as you pointed out, the AL East is a bear. And the Red Sox to me are pretty scary. Good pitching, Roman Anthony, some other guys, lineup guys. It's going to be a quite a summer in the AL East. And I'm not sure I'm giving Toronto the proper credit. After thoroughly enjoying watching them play throughout October last year, but it's going to be tough. But I think the Yankees are at the very least a playoff team.
Absolutely, Anthony. Really fun season. Thanks for all the time. Really appreciate it. If you want to follow on social media, keep up with your coverage over for us when the contributing guests and why. How can they do that?
Oh, the best thing is on X at Anthony McCarron. Come check it out. Come check out Baseball Night in New York and Honda Sports Night on SNY. Always having a good time talking about baseball on both those shows.